Hi, Kevin Keller, technical agronomist with DeKalb and Asgrow, and I'm down here in Holders, Nebraska, looking at a soybean field that had a little bit of frost injury on it. So just want to walk through with you some of the things that we look at when assessing some of the injury that we have out here, and also some of the stands that we have left. So what I did is I pulled back a row where we had some residue, and what you'll find with a lot of this frost injury is where we have residue, you're going to actually have a little bit more injury versus some of the bare ground, the strip till, the conventional tilled ground out there. And the reason why is that bare soil will actually radiate some of the heat from that soil up towards the plant on some of those cold nights, like what we had with the frost coming in on the morning of Sunday the 22nd. What I'm looking at here is some of the areas in the field that have a little bit more residue. That's where we're seeing more of the injury take place. And I'll just kind of brush that back and look at, how we're sitting, and really take your time to evaluate this, because a drooping soybean plant does not mean that it's dead. So when I look at the plants, there's probably about 3 different stages of injury that I'm really looking at and seeing as I evaluate some of these fields. So got a couple of plants, some of them that are for sure dead and injured. That would be easy to tell apart. I've got some here that the unifoliates were out and those are froze, and then a few plants where they look pretty healthy. So I want to show you what we look at here. So in this case, what we have is the first one. We'll start with the worst. We have the hypocotyl right underneath the cotyledons. What you want to look for is brown or mushy material underneath those cotyledons. If we're seeing that, unfortunately that plant will not make it. The next one we look at here had the unifoliates out, and you can see they're pretty wilted already. Does not look like they're going to make it. In fact, that primary growing point would be dead as well. In this case, it looks like it's brown and dead. So what we're left with to evaluate is initially this part of the plant. So we got the cotyledons. They're green and firm. They look pretty good. We also have firm material above the cotyledons. And when we pull the cotyledons back, I'll actually just take them off for you here just for the video. You can actually see where we have the auxiliary buds. So those are going to take over. In fact, this soybean plant will branch out, which may actually kind of help us in some of these thinner spots that we do have the injury in. Could help and contribute to that overall canopy. Now, the cotyledons are nice and healthy on this plant, which makes it a little easier to evaluate. But on the plants where we have maybe bushier cotyledons, but the hypocotyl is firm underneath, you may just want to check back in 3 or 4 days. Those plants may be a little bit more borderline, but when we have unifoliates and trifoliates out, losing that cotyledon is not going to be as negative to the overall plant size and plant contribution for yield as it would be if those plants were just coming out of the ground. When we have unifoliates and trifoliates setting on the soybean plant is less dependent on that cotyledon for its overall growth and development. Now, for soybean plants that were just coming up out of the ground, in that case, the hypocotyl is going to be the most sensitive. It's going to be exposed to the elements and the cool frost that we had. And there again, I'd be looking for that kind of mushy, soft tissue. This purpling, fun fact, that doesn't really have anything to do with the frost injury. This is going to be a purple flowering variety. And we see that in the color of the hypocotyl early on in emergence. So kind of a fun fact for you there. Overall, I'm feeling a lot better after looking at some of these fields. Any questions, feel free to reach out anytime. That's what we're here for. And best of luck the rest of the growing season.